Mahansa Paravatikacharya Stotara Sata Sri Shimad, His Divine Grace, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai, Ananta Gauri Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Shri Shri Radha Krishna Go Gopinath Shamakunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Navadip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai, Ganga Jamunamai Ki Jai, Tulasi Devi Maharani Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Harinam Sankirtana Ki Jai, Brihat Madanga Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Garanga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So the way Srila Prabhupada would normally start pretty much any class is he would read something from one of the scriptures, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, like that. Let's see, this meeting is being live streamed, got it? Okay. And then he would speak on it. So I guess we could use that same format. To start with, I'll read a chant of Sanskrit, and then of course the translation and part of the purport to a verse from the Nectar of Instruction, which was written by Srila Rupa Goswami. And then we'll say something about it. So this is text number 7 from the Nectar of Instruction. And it goes, Syat Krishna Nama Charitada Sitap Yavidya Pito Patapta Rasanasya Narochika Nu Kintvadadad Aduninam Kalu Shaiva Jushta Sadvi Kramad Bhavati Tadgara Mula Hantadi. And the translation for that is, the holy name, character, pastimes, and activities of Krishna are full of transcendently sweet like sugar candy. Although the tongue of one afflicted by the jaundice of avidya, in parentheses, ignorance, cannot taste anything sweet, it is wonderful that simply by carefully chanting these sweet names every day, a natural relish awakens within his tongue, and his disease is gradually destroyed at the root. So I chose this first because this is so fundamental, to our spiritual life. I mean, chanting Hare Krishna is kind of like the basis of the Krishna consciousness movement. It's how Prabhupada started the movement. It's what Lord Chaitanya introduced 500 years ago. And it's kind of like, it's the beginning of our spiritual life. Prabhupada used to quote this verse very frequently from the Padma Purana. It goes, Atak Shri Krishna Namadi, Nabhaved Gurai Mindriye, Sevan Mukhe Hijivado, Swayameva Sparatyada, which means that Krishna can't be understood by the material senses. He's understood by our spiritualized senses, beginning with the tongue. So it's like Sevan Mukhe Hijivado, that particular line. Seva means service, Mukhe means Sevan, Mukhe means mouth, he means certainly, Jiva means tongue, and Ado means beginning. So if you just kind of take it word by word, service, mouth, certainly, tongue, beginning. That's the literal translation of that verse. So it begins with the tongue, chanting. The tongue has 2 functions. One is tasting, and the other is vibrating. Sometimes Prabhupada said 3 functions: tasting, preaching, and chanting. But basically, tasting and vibrating. And it's recommended that one engage his tongue in those 2 functions, only vibrating that which is in relation to Krishna. It means chanting Hare Krishna, discussing the philosophy, preaching on Krishna's behalf, and only tasting that which has been offered to Krishna. And if somebody does that, then Krishna becomes pleased by that austerity, and he reveals himself. And Krishna's only understood by devotional service. We don't understand Krishna by any intellectual process. You get information of Krishna like that, but the actual understanding and the sense of realization that comes as a result of Krishna revealing it to us. Krishna's within the heart. And I might have quoted this at your wedding, I can't remember, but as he says in the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, to those who are constantly devoted and worship me with love, I give them the understanding or the intelligence by which they can come to me. And he goes on to say, out of compassion for them, I who am dwelling within their heart, destroy with the shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance. See, so that's how it works. Krishna's within the heart, and when Krishna's pleased by a soul's efforts in devotional service, then he destroys with the shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance. And that's the only way. That's the only way anybody can make any progress in devotional service. Ultimately, Krishna has to reveal it. See, so, and it's all based on service. There's so many different verses throughout the Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, where that same point is made, by different personalities, by Krishna himself, by Narada Muni, by Vyasadeva, by this one, by that one. They're all saying the same thing, right? Okay, so reading a little bit from the purple here. Prabhupada says, the holy name of Lord Krishna, his quality, pastimes, and so forth are all of the nature of absolute truth, beauty, and bliss. Naturally, they are very sweet, like sugar candy, which appeals to everyone. Nescience, however, is compared to the disease called jaundice. Nescience is another word for ignorance, which is caused by bilious secretions. Attacked by jaundice, the tongue of a diseased man cannot palatably relish sugar candy. Rather, a person with jaundice considers something sweet to taste very bitter. So, were you aware of that? Did you know that? Yeah, okay. So this is a great example. It says, avidya, ignorance, similarly perverts the ability to relish the transcendently palatable name, quality, form, and pastimes of Krishna. Despite this disease, if one with great care and attention takes to Krishna consciousness, chanting the holy name and hearing Krishna's transcendental pastimes, his ignorance will be destroyed and his tongue enabled to taste the sweetness of the transcendental nature of Krishna and his paraphernalia. Such a recovery of spiritual health is possible only by the regular cultivation of Krishna consciousness. See, so I'll read a bit more. When a man in the material world takes more interest in the materialistic way of life than in Krishna consciousness, he is considered to be in a diseased condition. The normal condition is to remain an eternal servant of the Lord. Jivera swarupahai krishnena nichadas. This healthy condition is lost when the living entity forgets Krishna due to being attracted by the external features of Krishna's Maya energy. This world of Maya is called Durasaya, which means false or bad shelter. One who puts his faith in Durashaya becomes a candidate for hoping against hope. In the material world, everyone is trying to become happy, and although their material attempts are baffled in every way due to their nescience, they cannot understand their mistakes. People try to rectify one mistake by making another mistake. This is the way of the struggle for existence in the material world. If one in this condition is advised to take the Krishna consciousness and be happy, he does not accept such instructions. This Krishna conscious movement is being spread all over the world just to remedy this gross ignorance. People in general are misled by blind leaders. The leaders of human society, the politicians, philosophers, and scientists, are blind because they are not Krishna conscious. According to Bhagavad Gita, because they are bereft of all factual knowledge due to their atheistic way of life, they are actually sinful rascals and are the lowest among men. Then Prabhupada quotes some Sanskrit from the Bhagavad Gita. Namam duskritino mudha prapajante naradama maya pratigyana asuram bhavam ashrita. For those miscreants who are grossly foolish, lowest among mankind, whose knowledge is stolen by illusion, who partake of the atheistic nature of demons, do not surrender unto me. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, text 14. And this is the last paragraph I'll read here, and then we'll say something. Such people never surrender to Krishna, and they oppose the endeavor of those who wish to take Krishna's shelter. When such atheists become leaders of society, the entire atmosphere is surcharged with nescience. In such a condition, people do not become very enthusiastic to receive this Krishna consciousness movement. Just as a diseased person suffering from jaundice does not relish the taste of sugar candy. However, one must know that for jaundice, sugar candy is the only specific medicine. Similarly, in the present confused state of humanity, Krishna consciousness, the chanting of the holy name of the Lord, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, is the only remedy for setting the world aright. Although Krishna consciousness may not be very palatable for a diseased person, Srila Rupa Goswami nonetheless advises that if one wants to be cured of material diseases, he must take to it with great care and attention. One begins his treatment by chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, because by chanting this holy name of the Lord, a person in the material condition will be relieved from all misconceptions. Chaito Darpana Marjanam. Prabhupada's quoting from the Anchalila of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, chapter 20, text 12. It says, avidya, a misconception about one's spiritual identity, provides the foundation for a hankar, or false ego within the heart. There's more, but we could stop there. Om Ganatamaram Dasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chakshudun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Karamayam Derati Swapadantikam. Okay, so Hare Krishna, nice to be here with you all. Thank you for inviting me. And so we got off to a good start here. We heard from Prabhupada, we heard first from Rupa Goswami. Rupa Goswami, one of the 6 Goswamis. Sometimes Prabhupada referred to him as the leader of the 6 Goswamis, even though he was the younger brother of Sanatana Goswami. He was perhaps the most, I was going to say the most prolific, but no, Jiva Goswami would have been the most prolific. But anyways, for some reason or another, Prabhupada, sometimes refer to Rupa Goswami as the leader. But he was very amazing devotee. I mean, in his eternal identity, he's Rupa Manjari. He's one of the Manjaris are a type of gopi. They're very young gopis. They assist Radha and Krishna in their pastimes, some of their most confidential, intimate pastimes, because they're very young. They're very innocent like that. So anyway, Rupa Goswami is actually Rupa Manjari in his eternal spiritual identity. So he's not like just some ordinary devotee, or just some great devotee. He's a personality that descended from the, Goloka Vrindavan, Braj, for the purpose of assisting Lord Chaitanya, or Krishna, in his pastimes. Krishna descended as Lord Chaitanya because he wanted to experience Radharani's love for him. He knew how much he loved Radharani, but now he wanted to experience, he could see that, I love Radharani, and I'm really getting a lot of pleasure from loving Radharani, but it seems she's even getting more pleasure from loving me than I'm getting from loving her. Well, what the heck is she experiencing? So he had to take the role of a devotee. He had to, in order to experience that. So Rupa Goswami is actually, as I said, Rupa Manjari. So she descended to assist Lord Chaitanya, or Lord Krishna, in that his internal reasons for accepting the incarnation of Lord Chaitanya. So he's a very important devotee. We get from Prabhupada only translated his literature. He didn't translate anything from any of the other Goswamis. Although he did do Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami's Chaitanya Charitamrita. He's not one of the 6 Goswamis, but we have Nectar of Devotion from Rupa Goswami. That's kind of Prabhupada referred to that as the science of devotional service. And Prabhupada, when it came out here in Los Angeles, Prabhupada gave a short class and he said, okay, now we have the Nectar of Devotion, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which he translated as Nectar of Devotion. Prabhupada said you should read it once, twice, thrice, until you have a threadbare understanding. And he said, and he encouraged the devotees that by repeating, he said, some of the material, this is in so many words now, okay, I'm not quoting verbatim, but Prabhupada said something to the effect that, some of this material is very esoteric and you're not going to necessarily understand it right away. But he said, don't come, but don't come running to me asking Prabhupada, what is this? What is this? He said, just keep reading it. He said, if you just keep reading it, then the understanding will emerge. And he made the point that when you read Nectar of Devotion, or Nectar of Instruction for that matter, the book I just read from this morning, you're associating with Rupa Goswami by reading their books like that. So, and also Prabhupada gave us a song by Rupa Goswami. I don't know the actual official name of the song, but it's about Radharani. And it, we chant it every year on Radhastami. It goes, Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Jayate. Might have heard it. Anyway, so Prabhupada, that was a song by Rupa Goswami. And Prabhupada said, he gave a little purport to that song. And I just remember like one thing he said, that he is the proper person. He says he's the proper person to tell us about Radharani. So, very exalted personality, Rupa Goswami. And of course, Prabhupada is giving us his purport. So, as I said, we're off to a good start because we've heard something perfect to start off with from two perfect personalities, two completely spiritually elevated, liberated, Nityasiddha, immensely qualified devotees like that. So from this point onwards, can't give any guarantee, but we'll try our best to say something Krishna conscious. Okay, so this morning I went for a japa walk, and because I looked up on my phone, I could see the weather forecast, what it was going to be clear. So I was hoping to see get the sunrise, and then this is kind of like a regular routine I have. I have a place, it's about a 10-minute walk from the temple. It's a parking lot, a municipal parking lot. It's right next to a Trader Joe's supermarket, I guess you call it, or whatever. And so I go up onto the roof there, and I have it's just positioned in such a way that nobody ever goes up there. The cars never make it up that far, so it's nice and open and clean and spacious, and have a facing east, and I kind of have a bird's eye view of the dawn, the sunrise. And I was checking to see, because at this time of the year there is a little bit of a hill there, and kind of the sun has to rise up from behind the hill. So anyway, I was checking to see if I was able to see the sunrise and make it back in time for Guru Puja, which I wasn't. But anyway, in the next couple of days, I probably will be. But I decided when I got up there this morning, this thought came to my mind. This analogy just popped in my head, so to speak. The analogy was something like this, that sometimes people take their dogs for a walk. When you're in the city, when somebody's taking their dog for a walk in the city, they generally have to keep them on a leash, because, it's a dog, it's an animal. Even the dogs some dogs are not vicious and they're trained, but still, it's a dog after all. So you got to keep them on a leash, because you don't want to have your dog be a disturbance to any of the other people. But like sometimes when the owner of a dog gets his dog up in like a park, like I've seen this, like there's a park kind of about 15-20 minutes near Kennethon. It's a state park, and up at the top of the park, it's it's sort of based on a hill. There's a big open field. So when the people get their dogs up there, they let them off the leash, and then the dogs can just run around like that freely, because they need to have that opportunity. So I thought to myself, well, you know what? I'm going to do the same thing with my mind, because mostly I have to keep my mind on a leash. We all do. That's what that's kind of part of being a human being. It's part of the job description, right? You got to keep your mind on a leash. There's a proper way to behave around older people. There's a proper way to behave around the opposite sex. There's a proper way to behave in terms of like what time of day you get up, when you eat, and let's face it, we're always having to, just like the dog, you always have to control it. So in the same way, we pretty much always have to, part of human life means, a big part of it means controlling your mind and behaving properly in so many different situations, despite what your mind might be kind of indicating to you that it would ideally like to do, you got to do what you're supposed to do. as opposed to what your mind would ideally like to do, right? And that's it. That's, there all the time. But anyway, so I thought, okay, but let me let my mind go a little bit. And so it was like a thought exercise, and it went something like this: that I'm there up on top of the roof, and I'm looking out into the horizon in the direction where the sun would rise. And I was there about like a half hour before, so it was just getting a little bit light in the sky, and sometimes at first it's a little bit reddish, kind of the sky is tinged with like a reddish hue there. And I was thinking to myself, okay, all official things aside now, putting like the fact that I'm a committed, card holding Hare Krishna, putting that aside, putting aside that I'm a sort of a personally committed person who believes in God, putting that aside. And I just thought to myself, okay, well, what do I think? Come on, it's just between me and me. What do I honestly think? So I was looking out there, and I thought to myself, well, so I don't know, because I don't really have any, I'm not like some sort of an elevated transcendentalist. I'm just an ordinary person, but I have to go with the idea that there's something wonderful behind all this. It's just like more than a guts feeling. It was kind of like a gestalt feeling. Like it's just, just every part of me was feeling, no, I can't just accept that this all just happened by some sort of as a result of some sort of an accident or some sort of series of random events. I just can't go with that. It's just too beautiful. It's too vast and it's too beautiful. There's something wonderful behind all this, something very powerful, something very intelligent, something very wonderful. It's just, as I said, it's just like a feeling. I can't prove that. I don't know it's right. I don't know it's wrong, but if I got to go with something, and we all do have to go with something, nobody can remain on the sidelines in life, and that as a human being anyway. Everybody is, whether they realize it or not, whether they've done it consciously or whether they're doing it, it's happened more as a result of an unconscious process. Everybody's got a point of view. Everybody is buying into some picture of reality, some understanding of life, some worldview like that. Okay. So I got to go with that one. I got to go with the worldview that there is something wonderful at the base of this whole thing, this whole experience of life. Okay. So that was what I felt. And then the next thing, the next thing I thought or felt was that, and where do I come into the picture? Well, I felt like it was a good feeling. It was a good feeling that to feel that there's something ultimately good. Life inherently or intrinsically is good. And I want to be an instrument for that goodness, whatever that primal underlying goodness that is what I felt was the ultimate basis of all existence. Okay. Then I thought, okay, that sounded good. I felt like, okay, that sounds good. But then, as I said, it was kind of like a little dialogue. I don't know if people talk to themselves are crazy. Maybe that's the case. But anyway, but I was, so then I had to challenge myself. I said, well, wait a second. You're saying that you're presenting, you're feeling that life is, something really good underlying everything, and you want to be an instrument to that, and that's wonderful. But is anything more than the sentiment? Because look, just look, zoom in a little bit and just, come on, take off the, the rose-colored glasses and look at what's really going on in this world. I mean, all life forms are suffering. Everything, every kind of living creature is suffering. I mean, let's put aside from the human species for a moment. In the animal kingdom, it's just like one species just preying upon another, basically, and that must be pretty hellish. And then the human life, the human species is preying on all the others. We're like the worst enemy of the, all the animals have their natural enemies, but we're like the enemy of practically every living species, because either we kill them and eat them, or we just disregard their existence and, destroy them in a different way, practically. Any species we come in contact, other than the human species, we're bad news, right? So there's a lot of suffering, is the point I'm making. There's a lot of suffering in all the different species, and there's a lot of suffering in human species. It's built in. it's built in. We get old, there's all sorts of diseases. Ultimately, people die. And in the process, we give each other a heck of a lot of trouble. It's not like people are all kind of, unified and buddy, and we're all helping each other get through this difficult thing of getting old, sick, and dying. No, we're all competing all the time and, cutthroat competition. You've heard that expression. So there's a lot of misery and a lot of suffering in life, human life and every other kind of life, right? So how could I be thinking that ultimately there's something good underlying everything? Somebody, somebody could easily come along and say, Bhrgupati, you're like Pollyanna, you're just kind of like choosing to see some good stuff and just turning a blind eye to what's really going on. Okay, so that's a legitimate question to raise or concern. So, okay, so here's how I responded to myself. Okay, so back about 10 years ago, I had to go into the hospital. I had to have a procedure for something that was it's like a medical condition I've had for years and years and years, and I kind of neglected it a little bit. So I had to go and have something. I got to the point where I had to go to the hospital and have something done. Okay, so I at that point I didn't have Medicare. We have in California, we have this, we have Medi-Cal. So I had to use that. So I had to go to like kind of like a public hospital. It was okay, worked out okay. So the first visit was a consultation. I sat down with the specialist and I told him what I was experiencing, and he said, okay, I'm familiar with that, and and he scheduled an actual time for me to come in for a procedure, I guess is how they refer to it. It's like not even call it an operation because it's kind of minor. So I went the second time, and so they, then they make you sign something. You have to sign a release form, which is basically you're not holding them responsible for if this goes wrong, or if that goes wrong, or if this goes wrong, or if that goes wrong. So I said, okay, no big deal. I signed the release form. You basically, it's kind of like saying, go do your thing, and I'm not going to, I'm not holding you responsible. I'm not going to interfere like that. So I signed it. Then we get in there, and I'm in the room where they're going to do it, and I'm on the table and everything. And he starts kind of doing what he has to do, and he realized, oh, this is kind of like, okay, this is a little bit more difficult than what I initially thought, but no problem. We can, we can deal with it, not a problem. So he started doing his thing, and at some point, I said, okay, it's getting kind of uncomfortable. I was expecting something very quick and comfortable, because I had that kind of thing done before, but it, and it was in that category. But this time, I guess I let it get to the point where it was not in that category, so it was pretty uncomfortable. So at some point, I was saying to him, hey, okay, that's good enough. We'll leave it at that. I'm okay with that. This that'll work. And I thought, well, I'm the patient. It's my body, so I should be able to tell them that, and they should just respond to that. They should just, okay, fine. But to my surprise, initially, no, they didn't, and they weren't rude about it or cruel about it. No, it's okay, don't worry. And they just kept going. There was the doctor there, the actual guy, and then he had assistants. So there's about 3 or 4 of them. So they just kept going. I thought, okay, well, anyway, I'm just being a little bit, what's the word? Wimpy. I'll just, kind of be a little more tough. So they kept going, but then it kept getting more uncomfortable. I'm going, so that after another 5 minutes, I said, hey, that's cool. Don't worry, leave it at that. It's all right, I don't think, I'm okay. Whatever you did, that's good enough, and they didn't listen to me, they kept going. And I realized these guys aren't, despite I guess, well, maybe that's what I signed. When I signed the thing, I signed my right away to just tell them to stop or something. I don't know. But anyway, I could see that they're not going to stop until they do what they think they got to do to do the thing properly. So I just had to kind of, bite the bullet, so to speak, and tolerate whatever was going on. And they did it, they finished. So now, in thinking about that, should I be thinking that these people, they're really evil? There they were. they were doing something that was making me really uncomfortable and against my will. It was uncomfortable. Like, I mean, it wasn't like excruciating pain and nothing like that, but it was pretty darn uncomfortable, and it was against my will. And I was expressing that. So should I consider them evil? No, that would be, I don't think that would be the correct analysis, because what you have to do is you have to look at the big picture, the whole picture. Then the whole picture goes something like this, that, I went there seeking some help with this medical issue, and they agreed. And so what they were doing was, they weren't trying to hurt me. It's not like they were sadistic. They were trying to help me. Their motive was definitely to help me. And so I have to consider that their motive was, their intention is they're trying to help me. And then I also have to consider that the outcome was good. It was, the process was kind of pretty hellish in one sense. Not that, it was uncomfortable, but the outcome was good, that I was, what they did was, I was worked for about 5 years. So as I said, so we have to, once again, this is an analogy. And the analogy, so at least going back to the actual thing. So if I were just to focus in on the fact that, for 10, 15 minutes there, I was really uncomfortable, then, and therefore these people, and these people are responsible for that, so they're evil, I'd be missing the whole point, which was that they really helped me. All right, so here's the analogy now. That our situation as souls here in the material world is the same way, okay? We're souls here in the material world, and as Prabhupada pointed out in what I read here, we're in the diseased spiritual condition. We need to be helped. We need like therapy, or we need like rehabilitation, spiritual rehabilitation. And this material world is actually meant for that purpose. See, this is like, we're like me there. It's Krishna's subjecting all the living entities in this material world to suffering, and it's against their will. But what's his motivation? His motivation, Krishna's not, yeah, it's right. Krishna's not sadistic. He doesn't take pleasure in seeing his parts and parcels suffer. No, he's trying to help us. He's trying to help us. He's trying to help us return to a normal condition of spiritual health. So just like sometimes it's, the expression necessary evils. So there are necessary evils, just like with the school. Let's use the example of a school. Nobody likes tests, I don't think. Well, most students don't like them, and they don't like homework, and they pretty much don't even like coming to class. But if you don't have classes, if you don't have homework, if you don't give students tests, how can you have a school? Right? How can they actually learn anything? And if you don't have learning, if you don't learn anything as a young person growing up, how can you grow as a person? See, so it's a necessary evil. So in the same way, all the things that living entities are undergoing in this material world are, necessary evils, because it's what we need to experience. We need to undergo these things in order to be returned, be reformed, be rehabilitated, and return to normal spiritual health. Now you could say, well, wait a second, but then everybody just dies, but so it's, in order to appreciate what I'm saying, you have to have certain ideas, tools, sort of epistemological tools in place. One is that you have to understand that we are, as spiritual beings, we're existing in a multiple life process. That's one of the most fundamental ideas in Krishna consciousness, that, we're souls, we're eternal, ultimately. And in this material world, we're taking one body. I've heard Prabhupada say in lectures, we've had crores and crores of births in this material world. A crore is 10 million. In another lecture, I heard Prabhupada say, many, many Brahma's lives have come and gone, and still we are conditioned. So Brahma lives for 311 trillion, 40 billion years. Many, many, how many is many, many? Who knows, In other words, we've been in this material world for a long time. So multiple lives, getting out, returning to Krishna consciousness, even after one comes in contact with it, it's still very much a multiple life process. My evidence for that is from the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, text 19. Krishna says, Bahunam janmanam ante, gyanavam mam papajate, vasudeva savarmiti samahama sadurlabha. After many births and deaths, one who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes, and all that is such a great soul is very, very rare. So Krishna himself is saying, after many births and deaths, you see? And Prabhupada says in one other purport in the Bhagavad Gita, due to many, many millions of lifetimes engaged in materialism, the soul is covered by the dust of materialism, something like that. But he also, in the purport, he makes that same point. So it's a multiple life process. And what's happening is Krishna is trying to, through this multiple life process, of us taking birth in one body after another, Krishna is trying to help us come to the point where we once again surrender to him, so he can take us out of here and take us back to the spiritual world. So here, I'll read something that kind of supports that. This is from the chapter summary from chapter 9, Canto 7, chapter 9. It's entitled, Prahlad Pacifies Lord Nrsimhadev with Prayers. And in his purport, Prabhupada says, the Lord is present in everyone's heart as the super soul to give the living being protection and all benefits. Thus, the Lord acts sometimes as the killer and sometimes as the protector. Well, how is it, if you're the killer, how are you getting all benefits? It just seems almost like it's contradictory. So that's why we're going to try to explain this. One should not accuse the Lord for any discrepancies. It is his plan that we see varieties of life within this material world. All of them are ultimately his mercy. And I think that's important. It's an important statement there. It is his plan that we see varieties of life within this material world. In other words, his plan is for our reformation, for our rehabilitation. And Prabhupada's saying, all of them are ultimately his mercy. Well, how is it his mercy? How is it his mercy that sometimes he's the killer? Well, it's his mercy is this, this in a couple different ways. Whoops, what happened here? I think I got, let me just get my picture. Okay, my picture has changed, but that's okay. Can you guys hear me? Okay, good, all right. So it's his mercy in this, and that, as I mentioned earlier, we're Krishna's spiritual expansions, Vibhinamsa. Krishna has two types of expansions, Swamsa, which means him, the personality of Godhead, taking different forms, executing different roles for different purposes of his own. But we are not in that category. We're the Vibhinamsas. We're his separated parts and parcels. And we have an eternal relationship with him. And we also have a minute independence, minute free will. And that's there because if we don't have minute free will, then we'd be just like robots or slaves. And it's not what Krishna doesn't take any. Krishna doesn't want robots and slaves. He wants loving relations. Krishna expands as the Vibhinamsas, the parts and parcels, to experience and enjoy loving relationships. You see? So if he doesn't give us that minute free will, then there's no question of a loving relationship. If he expands as us and we can only do what he wants us to do, then we're just like robots or slaves, and then there's no pleasure there for Krishna because that's, he wants that loving relationship. So we have that minute free will. And so some of us, those of us who are in the material world, we have misused it. And that's how we got here in the material world. Prabhupada, on one occasion here in Los Angeles, Prabhupada was meeting with, I think the man's name was Professor Mize or something like that, up in his quarters there, quarters here in New Dwarka. And the man asked him, do all the souls come here to the material world? And Prabhupada said, no, only small percent. He said 10%. And then he paused and he said, actually less than 10%. And even on other occasions, I've heard Prabhupada give a small, so most souls, most Vibhinamsas never come here to the material world. They just never do. They never make that mistake. They never misuse their minute independence, their free will. They're eternally, they're what's called Nityasiddha. They're eternally in either one of the Vaikuntha planets or in Goloka Vrindavan. But some small percentage of us, the Vibhinamsas, we misuse our free will. We come here to the material world. And even within the material world, we do a lot of other dumb things. And therefore, we have to experience the consequences. But through this whole process of coming into the material world and going through so many different species of life, and then coming to the human form of life, and coming in contact with the bona fides, we're meant to be learning, growing, advancing spiritually. I was raising the question: how is it ultimately His mercy? Well, one thing is, Krishna, he doesn't just snuff us out. That it is one possible alternative. Imagine, you have a family and you have like a lot of kids. Say you had 100 kids, and some of those kids were really, maybe 7 or 8 of them, let's say, were really misbehaved and horrible, attacking you, threatening you, etc. So, here might happen here in the material world, not with children, but with citizens. If you have some citizens that are rebelling against a state, where there's a benevolent despot or benevolent king or something like that, one option is you just kill them. Throughout world history, that's happened. People who are kind of like rebelling against the state, the powers that be. But Krishna doesn't do that. Krishna doesn't like annihilate us. He's continuing, allowing us to live, right? And he's putting us in a process to rehabilitate us. So that's mercy right there. That's His mercy. Rather than just kind of like snuff us out of existence, He's rehabilitating us so that we can, even though despite the fact that we're, against Him. That's why we're here in the material world. So He's so kind and merciful that He's trying to rehabilitate us, despite the fact that we don't really deserve it in one sense, and for the purpose of helping us, return to the spiritual world. So I noticed in the email I was sent that there was, when it said topic, it says Sunday love feast. So I thought I might say something about that. How is it a love feast? Well, because that phrase came from Prabhupada, Sunday love feast. What does he mean by that? Does it mean that it's a time when the people come together and they love each other, or the devotees love the? No, I think it's a Sunday love feast because the conditioned souls are coming to the temple and to the association of devotees to experience Krishna's love for them. But it's the Sunday love feast because when you come to the Sunday program, you hear the philosophy, you chant Hare Krishna, you take prasadam, and hopefully and ultimately you're experiencing Krishna's love for all of us. That's my understanding of what is meant by the Sunday love feast. It's not like some hippie sentimental kind of thing. It's an opportunity for the conditioned souls to come and experience Krishna's love for us, which is kind of very important, what it's all about. So let's see. Okay, I got a few more things here, but I think I've spoken for about 45 minutes, so pretty kind of close to it. Maybe I could stop there and ask if anybody has any question or first questions, I suppose, and, or comments are also welcome. And then I could maybe bring in other points I wanted to make as, kind of in the course of the questions and the answers and et cetera. So if that's okay, we could do like that. Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Hare Mata.
Your talk is very nice. I had a question.
Let me turn my volume up. Hang on. Go ahead.
Yes, I had a question about how you said that we're coming to the Sunday Love Feast to experience that mercy and that love that Krishna has brought to us. What exactly are the other conditioned souls experiencing? They don't understand, they don't have the concept that, this is Krishna's mercy. They don't have the conception that all of this is here to help me and make me grow and learn in this spiritual rehabilitation. What is that? What are they experiencing that's different from us?
Right. Uh, you're also experiencing Krishna's love, but love can be expressed in a lot of different ways. Have you heard the expression tough love? Yeah, well, tough love is love. Sometimes I think it's a lot of times it's used in connection with children who are misbehaved. Sometimes you have to give them some tough love. It's not like, which means you're disciplining them. They might get a timeout. They might be deprived of some privileges that they were previously receiving because, due to misbehaving or punished in some way. So superficially, it appears like, no, it's not. That's not, no, but it's love. It's love because the parents are doing it. Sometimes I met my father, I don't know, my father maybe said it a couple of times, it's a cliche. Son, this is going to hurt me more than it hurts you. What does that mean? It means that the father really doesn't want to hit his son or something like that, but he knows he has to do it because, otherwise it's not going to be good for his, his growing up like that. So everybody's getting Krishna's love. Krishna, actually, I heard Prabhupada saying one lecture, Krishna doesn't do anything operate at all outside the principle of love, but there's different manifestations. It just comes in different forms. So they're also getting Krishna's love, right? I mean, even people who are like suffering horribly in different ways, it's really, that's when it's really, especially for us, because well, for me, I'll speak for myself, I'm not an elevated transcendentalist, so it's hard to see somebody who is really in a horrible condition of material life and understand how they're getting Krishna's love. But we have to be train ourselves to be Shastra Chakshush, which means see through the eyes of the scripture, which means seeing through the eyes of the philosophy. So you have to kind of preach to yourself and you have to say, no, wait, this person is in that condition due to, they're receiving reactions to their past sinful activities. And because of what they're undergoing now, they're going to learn something. They're learning because they're being schooled. We're all being schooled, right? In different ways. Just like when you go to school, depending on what grade you're in, you kind of get schooled in a different way. If you're in first grade, second grade, third grade, you're very carefully supervised and do this, do that. Where did you go? You got to take the pass to go to the bathroom or something like that, But when you get older, when you're in a PhD program, it's kind of like, you just basically have total freedom and you just got to show up and defend your dissertation or whatever, make, your thesis at the end of the whole thing. So it's different. We're all being schooled, and depending upon the level of the student, that schooling takes different forms. For people who are on a lower level, then Krishna's got to, he's got to really kind of sock it to him, tough lessons. And people who have the due to whatever have become up to a higher level, then Krishna can go forbidden. Okay, give them some more freedom because they can handle it. So I think that's my understanding. We're all getting Krishna's love, but it's just coming in different ways because we're on different levels. But everybody's getting what they need. Everybody's getting what they need to progress, to make progress in their journey back home, back to Godhead. And sometimes it's difficult to understand, but that's like a very basic and important understanding Krishna consciousness. I have trouble finding it. A quick notice, but you're probably familiar with it already. In the Nectar of Devotion, there's Prabhupada quotes this verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's from the 10th canto, chapter 14, by Lord Brahman. It goes, Tatenu kampam susamikshimano bunjana evatna kritam vipakam. I can't remember the rest of the Sanskrit, but the translation and the gist of it is that one who accepts his reactions to his past sinful activities and just sees them as that and just goes on worshiping you from the core of his heart, he earns the right to go back to the spiritual world. So we have to see it like that. We have to see that, the stuff that's going wrong in my life and in other people's lives, that's due to the past sinful activities. Don't get discouraged by that. Don't, as Prabhupada says here in this thing, we shouldn't accuse the Lord of any discrepancies. We can't blame Krishna. We can't blame Krishna for the things that are going wrong in our life or in other people's lives, because we brought it upon ourselves as a result of things we've, misuse of our free will in the past. So we just have to take responsibility for our own situation, whatever it is, and just go on with our Krishna consciousness. Tolerating, okay, this is happening to me. I deserved it. I earned this, and that's why it's happening. Actually, I just probably deserve worse, but by Krishna's mercy, I'm just getting this. But I got to just tolerate this and continue with my Krishna consciousness. So I think we're all getting Krishna's love, but it's just, as I said, it's just coming in different forms according to what level we're on. That makes sense?
Yes, perfect and perfect answer. Prabhuji, thank you.
Anybody else have anything they'd like to ask?
I think Quinn had a question, but I'm not sure she had her hand raised. I don't know if she wants to ask a question. Quinn, did you have a question?
Sure. Don't be shy, please.
Hi. Hi. Hare Krishna. I was just kind of confused because I was raised Roman Catholic, so naturally I grew up with the whole you suffer in order to achieve your place in heaven. And so the way that you kind of explained it is getting back to Krishna consciousness, correct?
Mhm.
Yeah, and so I was just, thank you for explaining that, because you actually did answer my question. It's just more, I have a lot of agnostic friends,
Okay.
so they see this, suffering because of your karma load and things like that that you inherited from your past life and things like that. In order to go back to the spiritual realm, they see that as barbaric, and so I'm kind of like, how would you kind of explain it to someone like that?
Okay. So let's, as far as the Catholic thing goes, they, I don't know, they don't believe, Catholics don't believe in reincarnation. That's not part of the Christian worldview. So from what I remember or what I've understood, that they believe that our suffering, they have a concept called inherited sin. Inherited sin. In other words, we're suffering because Adam and Eve, they sinned, and we're in their downline. So we've inherited that condition. So we're not suffering because of anything we've done wrong necessarily. We've inherited the condition, the whole human race has. So we don't go with that. We, as a devotee of Krishna, Prabhupada acknowledged, sometimes we refer to Jesus Christ as Lord Jesus Christ. And Prabhupada's spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he acknowledged, he said he's a Kshatriya avatar. So we have all respect for Jesus Christ as devotees of Krishna. But I guess you could have to say we feel he's been misrepresented theologically, philosophically speaking, by his own tradition. In other words, we don't think they got it right. We believe Jesus Christ was right, but we don't believe that what they're saying he taught, or what their interpretation of his teachings is correct. They have misconceptions about spiritual life. So that's the Christians. Okay. So hope that clarifies something. As far as the agnostics go, they think it's barbaric. I don't know what's barbaric about it. It's justice.
Well, it's because they just don't understand why you would have to suffer yourself whenever you've never done personally anything, but it's because of their past life. They just don't understand the transfer of karma. And I've tried to explain it, but they're still like, there should be no reason why such a loving God should punish you. And it's like, well, it's not him, it's you that you did in your past lives. And I don't know, it's just there's a misconnection. So
yeah, a bit of a disconnect. Okay, well, okay. Couple points on that. One is, if they're agnostics, they probably don't even believe in reincarnation. And there's probably a lot of disbelief on their part under the surface that they might not even be expressing. But so one thing you could do for them, because if you just say, well, it says so in the Bhagavad Gita, that probably won't fly, that might go down like a lead balloon. But here's something you could do with them, and you might find it interesting yourself. There is empiric evidence for consciousness surviving the death experience. It's in the forms of near-death out-of-body experiences, which you might have heard of. People who have been in a condition where they're considered clinically dead. They have no heartbeat, no brain waves, needless to say, no respiration. And they're in that condition, and then they come back from it, and they're able to report. And when you're in that kind of condition, it's called flatlines. When you're in that state, you're not supposed to be able to, you don't experience anything. Because when you don't have any heartbeat, respiration, heartbeat, or brain waves, you're out. You shouldn't be experiencing anything, okay? These people come back after they had their operation or whatever, and they're describing what happened to them during that time when they should have been completely unconscious, not aware of anything. And then they're able to verify the information that they present in different ways. So that's one kind of form of empiric evidence that supports the idea that consciousness survives the death experience. An even more dramatic one, at least in my opinion, is there's children who remember their past lives. There's children who, when they hit a certain age, 2, 3, basically when they first start able to start talking, they're able to describe, they start talking about like their previous lifetime in a way, not in like a sort of an academic way, but they think they are that person. They think they haven't, it's like, I don't know, it doesn't happen so much now, but if you turn back the clock 10 years, computers didn't have the processing systems that they have now. I don't know if you remember this, I do. When I would change from one, at least on the computers I was using, when I would change from one website to the other, it was like a lag time. It was like I would change to the other website, but while it was loading, I was still seeing the old website, you see? So technically speaking, I changed. I'm on the, I already clicked and everything, and, I'm on the new website, but it hadn't caught up yet. All the information hadn't loaded, so I wasn't seeing it. Or sometimes you see it partially. So it's like that. These kids who are remembering their past lives, they're like souls. Their subtle body hasn't had a chance to kind of catch up. You know what I mean? A lot of times when they, in the research, they find that these are people who they died abruptly. They were murdered or killed in some sort of an accident. They didn't live to like 94, 5, 6 years old and then just kind of die gradually over a year. No, it was something like, at 21 years old, they got murdered or they abruptly killed in some way. And they just kind of like, all of a sudden they hit the next body, and so they're in the soul's in the new body, but the subtle body hasn't a chance to process everything yet. They're still thinking that they're the previous personality. See, and they're protesting to their parents. I don't, you're not my mother and father. I want to go back to, my actual family. And in some instances, they've been able to, identify the place where they used to live, when the kid gets old enough, they take them there, and then that kid will lead the way back to the house where they used to live. They take him to the town he claims to have lived in, and then the kid will lead the way to the house he used to live, and he'll be able to point out, this person was my mother, this person was my father, this is my brother, that's the guy who killed me in my previous life, and they run up and these kind of things, even if the house was changed around, they could, the way they said, no, wait a second, but that's there now, but that used to be over there. Actually, the door used to be here. I don't know what the door is doing over here now, and that's all correct. You see, so they're actually able to present all this verifiable information indicating that, which seems to indicate that, yeah, they were existing as that previous personality. So that might be interesting, if nothing else, for you. If you can go on YouTube and type in, Jim B. Tucker reincarnation, or that's probably the best one. And you could watch videos, and you could, there's videos of these men who are actually mainstream medical doctors, psychiatrists who've done about 50 years research on the subject. And, you could have your friends watch one of those, and that might help them kind of, if not become convinced, but at least be open-minded about the possibility that maybe, reincarnation is something that happens. Because look, here's some, what seems to be evidence for it, good quality empiric evidence. So that's there. And then as far as the karma part of it goes, okay, well, somebody's reincarnating from one life to the next. And it seems like God would be cruel to have you suffer for in this lifetime for stuff you did wrong in a previous lifetime. So what's my response to that? Let me think for a second. I don't know why should he have to, I mean, just completely let us off the hook like that. And there should be some consequences that people have to, the living entities, part of the learning processes, we have to understand that we have free will. Remember I mentioned that about 10 minutes ago, that, Krishna gives us all a little bit of free will. So part of becoming rehabilitated again, reform, is realizing that there's consequences. You see, if Krishna was to let every living entity that engaged in all sorts of sinful activities just off the hook in their next lifetime, no consequences, where's the impetus to change the behavior? See, behavior modification is required. And part of the motivation for behavior modification is this allowing the living entities to experience consequences for their misbehavior. Does that make sense? So it's part of the educational process. It might seem a little bit cruel, but that's, that I guess that would be my way of understanding it. It's part of an educational process. Consequences have to be there.
Yeah, definitely how you were talking about the tough love earlier. And
Yeah, it's tough love. That's it.
Yeah,
it's just tough
it's
love.
like, I understand it. It's just kind of the people who don't believe in God, they always want to question, why this, why that. And it's just like, it just is.
Right.
Sorry.
But
It
here's
just
another
is.
suggestion for you. If you have like friends in that category, and they're your friends, okay? They're not just like people who like want to argue with you, but they're your friends. Definitely you want to expose them. You want to get them prasadam. And I'm not just trying to be funny here, You want to get them prasadam, and you want to bring them in the association of the devotees when there's chanting. Because remember at the beginning, earlier in the class, I was saying about how Krishna is realized by service, and the service begins with the tongue. That is a big, big point. Because the tendency of people in the Kali Yuga, nobody likes to lose an argument. It used to be, Prabhupada, and I heard Prabhupada say this in lectures, that it used to be the case that, if like two people were debating or something like that, like say, there's a devotee debating with a Mayavadi. You know what a Mayavadi is, right? You've heard that word, Mayavadi, impersonalist. It's somebody who doesn't believe that God's a person. So like in India, traditionally, it's not like everybody always just is a devotee of Krishna. There's different schools of philosophy. There's different schools of spiritualism, even within India. Vaishnavism, or followers of the teachings of Vishnu Krishna, is not the only one. So a lot of times they would, meet, they'd lock horns and they would debate, So the idea was that if you defeated somebody in a debate, then it was expected you become their disciple. Okay, and you defeated me in the argument. So now I accept what you say and I follow your conclusions. But that doesn't happen in the Kali Yuga, because people, even I've experienced this when my service is book distribution. So earlier on, when I was younger, less experienced, I used to try to debate with people. But I found that even if I was defeating all their arguments, they never accepted defeat. All they would do is they just, as soon as I kind of like beat them on a point, they just changed the subject. And even if I kind of just stuck with it and just defeated them at every single different point they were kind of bringing up, at the end of the whole thing, they just didn't accept it. Or even if they did sort of go, well, yeah, I can see your point, then they wouldn't take the books. They wouldn't take the books and give a donation. So at some point years ago, I decided it's futile. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to engage in philosophical debates with people that I meet, because there's no integrity. Even if I defeat them, they won't accept it. And even if they accept it, they're not prepared to engage in devotional service. So what's the point? I'm just wasting my time. So what I do is when somebody's like, if I could see somebody's wanting to argue like that, I just flatter them. I'll just, I'll just, not forever. I'll just give them a couple compliments, maybe try to make a joke or two and see if I can just get them to take the book and give a donation. So in other words, you want to avoid that. If these are people that you really care about and, you have a relationship with, get them prasadam and get them in the association of the devotees so they could, participate in the chanting. Don't argue with them because they'll, it's just the nature of people in this day and age. Everybody just wants to argue, and they won't accept it. They won't accept you as an authority. They probably wouldn't even accept Prabhupada as an authority. They'll just argue and argue and argue. So the best thing is prasadam, that's that's our secret weapon, and it's as I said, it's not just like I'm not just being facetious here. That is a process. That really is our process. Krishna is making a big concession because we're in the Kali Yuga. People are really fallen. In the Kali Yuga, we're really covered over. So because we're so covered over, Krishna, as Lord Chaitanya, has made the process really accessible. And that really accessible is you just have to chant and take prasadam. So that really is the process. It's not just kind of like, I'm not being patronizing or something like that. That's really our process. Get people to take prasadam, because even people who won't chant will take prasadam generally. And once they take prasadam, it's just a matter of time. They'll chant. And once they're taking prasadam and they're chanting, then probably it's just a matter of time they'll start reading the books. And it'll be gradual, but slowly but surely wins the race.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, Jay. Anybody else?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for your time and your realizations, and I really appreciate your analogies. I just really like how concrete they are and help paint the picture for me to have a better understanding. But I guess I just wanted to make the question of when you spoke on the Sunday love feast. I don't know if you can hear me. Sorry.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. When you spoke on the Sunday love feast being an opportunity for us to experience Krishna's love, I always that's pointing me back into how I have difficulty connecting things back to Krishna. How blessings in life, or even just hard lessons, there's a difficulty with this is coming from Krishna. There's I guess it's still maybe an impersonal sort of thing that I got going on in my mind, where it's just there's just this space or something. I don't know how to describe it, but yeah, I guess it's just how when we start relating things more to Krishna, is that just part of the process, or is there ways that we can sort of help remind ourselves of that? I guess what I'm seeking for is how to remember Krishna. I don't know if that's the best way to put it.
Yeah, no, that's I understand what you're saying. Okay. That's Shastra Chakshush. That's why Prabhupada has given us all these books with purports, so we can remember, we could read what he has to say and then remember the philosophy. I'll give you an example, okay? This is from the 8th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. This is chapter 3, text 17. So this is one of those ones where, it's kind of along the lines of what I was saying earlier about how there's something good. I had that guts feeling that, no, there's something really good behind everything. I just have that feeling. And so this is, but that was a very, impersonal, very primitive sort of a understanding. But here Prabhupada's saying, in pure devotional consciousness, the same thing, but giving the, focusing. Anyway, I'll read it. Only Krishna can deliver us from this material existence. Indeed, he is always trying to deliver us. That's really good to know right there. You got the Supreme Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And what is he doing? It says here, among other things, of course, He's always trying to deliver us, Prabhupada says. And then he goes on, says, Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam Hrideshe Arjuna Tishtati. He is within our hearts and is not at all inattentive. Okay, well, that's more good news, right? That Krishna's trying to deliver us. He's in our hearts and he's aware of what we're going through. He's aware of what's going on in our life. Okay. Then it goes on to say, his only aim is to deliver us from material life. Woo! That's a big statement right there. Now, of course, when it says his only aim, this is his only aim as the super soul being here in the material world. I mean, Krishna's got other things he's doing with his life, and Goloka Vrindavan like that. But at least as far as the conditioned souls go here in the material world, as a super soul, his only aim is to deliver us from material life. So that's very good news, because here you got the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who's unlimitedly powerful, unlimitedly intelligent, unlimitedly, and we're hearing basically here he's unlimitedly compassionate as well. That's a nice combination. I mean, that's a nice person to have in your corner trying to help you, right? Somebody who's got those kind of qualifications, and and their only aim is to deliver you from material life. Then it goes on. It is not that he becomes attentive to us only when we offer prayers to him. Even before we offer our prayers, he incessantly tries to deliver us. That's really, that's like taking it to the next level again, right? And this is really addressing a point that your wife was bringing up about how do we understand, people who aren't devotees and what they're undergoing. Well, here it's, Prabhupada's addressing that point. He incessantly tries to deliver us. He's never lazy in regard to, I can't, I read ahead there. It is not that he becomes attentive to us only when we offer prayers to him. Even before we offer our prayers, he incessantly tries to deliver us. So there's all these people out there who aren't devotees, who aren't offering prayers. They're not thinking of Krishna. They're not thinking about spiritual life. They're just trying to go about being happy in a totally material, bodily concept of life. Krishna is not forgetting about them. It's saying here, he incessantly tries to deliver us. He's, that means I think they're included in that. Even before we offer our prayers, even before you become devotional, right? He's not talking about, when Prabhupada says that he's not talking about devotees who aren't offering prayers. I think he's talking about non-devotees, people who aren't, because the Hare Krishna mantra is a prayer, it's a prayer right there. And so even before we offer our prayers, it's referring to all the conditioned souls who aren't, yet desiring to be a devotee yet. But Krishna's incessantly trying to deliver us. He's never lazy in regard to our deliverance. So it's not that he's into it. He's not even lazy about it. He's into it. He really wants to, it's a priority. Krishna's never lazy in regard to our deliverance. And then it says, therefore, this verse says, Buddhi Karunaya Namolala. It is the causeless mercy of the Supreme Lord that he always tries to take us back home, back to Godhead. So Krishna's always trying. Not just with the devotees. He is trying with the devotees, but not just with the devotees. He's trying with everybody. He's trying with all the conditioned souls to take them back home, back to Godhead. Now, you might think, well, that's about as good as it can get, right? Nope, it gets better. Listen to this. God is liberated, and he tries to make us liberated. But although he is constantly trying, we refuse to accept his instructions. And then Prabhupada quotes from the 18th chapter, Sarvadhamam Parichajamame Kamsaranambrajan. Here it comes. It says, nonetheless, he has not become angry. That's a significant sentence right there. In other words, despite the fact that he's Krishna, he's got so many better things to do with his time, okay? But he's, he's making it a high priority to try to deliver us. And we're not responding. We're not, appreciating it. But Krishna doesn't get frustrated. He doesn't get frustrated. He doesn't get angry. He doesn't think, well, screw you guys, I got better things to do with my time. No, he just keeps going. He doesn't get angry. He does, what is that? He doesn't become angry. He keeps trying to do it, despite the fact that we're rebuffing him and rejecting and so forth and so on. Krishna's kind of still trying. It says, therefore, he is described as Buddhi Karunaya, unlimitedly merciful, not just merciful, but unlimitedly merciful in delivering us from this miserable material condition of life and taking us back home, back to Godhead. So that's, I love that purport. That's one paragraph in a particular purport, but I love it because, it gives me great hope that, okay, I just have to stick with Krishna consciousness and everything's going to be all right. Why? Because as fallen as I might be, as unqualified as I may be, not me, my wife would tell you definitely, but Krishna is more merciful than I am fallen and than I am unqualified. So if I just don't give up, if I just don't throw in the towel and turn my back, and if I just stick it out, Krishna's gonna yank me out of here. It's just like Prabhupada, spiritual master, used to give the example of somebody's in a well and that you throw them a rope. They don't have to climb out. You can't climb out of a well, pretty much, okay? And if even somebody throws you a rope, most people are not going to be able to just shimmy up the rope. That's kind of hard. I mean, somebody who's like a gymnast, somebody's in really great shape, if you just threw them a rope, they might be able to climb up the rope. Most people are going to have to tie it around their waist, and then just hang on, and they'll pull them out. The thing is, you got to do that much. You got to do that much. It's not expected that we're going to be able to climb up the rope, so to speak. Krishna's not expecting us to become like Bhagavanath Das Goswami, who was able to practically not eat and not sleep and, chant 64 rounds a day and offer 1,000 obeisances to devotees, and et cetera, et cetera. No, we're not expected. No, but we are expected that we just do the, some minimum thing of chant 16 rounds, which pretty much everybody could do if they put their mind to it. Be vegetarians, offer your food to Krishna, like that. So that's the equivalent of just not trying to climb up the rope, but just tie the rope around your waist. You got to be able to do that much. Just tie the rope around your waist, make a good tight knot, and then just hang on, and they're going to pull you out. So, yeah. So anyway, so this gives me great hope, this purport, to hear, hear like that. So what was the question?
Prabhuji, thank you for that analogy. It was kind of funny, but it came to me like at the beginning of Krishna consciousness with that rope. We want to just like do some kind of, our first thought is to climb the rope, but we want to make a show out of it. And then it's like after a while, we're just like, you know what, this is tiring. I can't, there's no way I can keep climbing. And
Right.
you just that surrender, just you have to tie that rope around your tummy and just like, okay, like I need to get pulled out of here. But yeah, and like I could just see how so much of that is like wanting to make a show out of it. Oh, I can just climb with one hand, or it's just really funny.
I'll give you a Shastric reference for that, actually. You know that story about so at one point the Pandavas were doing really, what happened was, okay, here's what happened. Okay, so the Pandavas were entitled, they were the actual rightful inheritors of the kingdom, Maharaj Yudhisthira, because he was the oldest son. Actually, what's his name? Karna was the oldest son, but wasn't acknowledged at that point. So they came out of exile. I think it was after they came out of exile, they approached Dhritarashtra and they said, okay, come on. We fulfilled the conditions. We stayed incognito for so many years. And so now, you got to give us half the kingdom because we're Kshatriyas and we got to rule. So Maharaj Dhritarashtra, he was so devious, anyway, what he did was he gave him Kanva Prash, basically gave him the desert. He gave him the part of the kingdom which was desert, useless land, not fertile, nothing, useless. And so he's basically trying to cheat him. But Krishna said, take it. Krishna told him, no, so go take it. It's okay. So they took it. And they went out there and they, Krishna just made it happen. It rained. It normally didn't rain out there, but it rained and they were able to, became very, fertile, and they grew stuff. And I think it was either Maya Danava, the architect for the Asuras, or Vishvakarma came and he built an incredible palace for them. And anyway, so they became very opulent and etc. And they were to the point where they were going to do the Rajasuya sacrifice. The chronology really is not something I'm very expert with, but at some point what happened was, they were so envious, the Kauravas were so envious of their opulence that they had to, but they couldn't by any honest means kind of deprive them of it. So Shakuni, who was kind of like always had a devious mind, he suggested to to Duryodhana, that he arranged for this gambling match, because it was kind of well known that Yudhishthira, what Kshatriyas can't decline a challenge to fight or to gamble. So they had to accept it, and it was well known that Maharaj Yudhishthira wasn't very good at dice. It's a little different than dice how they do it today, but he wasn't good. Anyway, so they cheated him, and they he was engaging in this gambling match, and he was losing, and finally they even wagered Draupadi, and lost. So then after he lost Draupadi, then so who was it? Karna, I believe. It was Karna. He was humiliated by Draupadi previously. She had a Swayamvar, which means they had a contest to see who could be her husband. And at the contest, there was a very difficult task that the competitors or the contestants had to try to shoot the eye of a fish that was protected by a wheel that was spinning, but they had to do that by looking at the reflection in a water pot, like that. So a bunch of them were there. They tried, what's his name? Duryodhana couldn't do it. Sisupa, so many different Kshatriyas tried and they couldn't do it. And basically it got down to Arjuna and Karna. So Arjuna did it, and then Karna came forward and he wanted to have a go at it. And she said, no way, you can't, you can't compete in this, because you're not a Kshatriya, you're a Sutta. He actually was. He was the son of the sun god. So he really was a Kshatriya as much as anybody else there, even more so. But he wasn't, she said, no, I would never marry a Sutta. He felt very insulted by that. He felt like totally humiliated, insulted, and he kind of, in his heart. So anyway, so when that came out, that gambling, when Draupadi was lost, then he said, okay, so now Draupadi's lost, so why don't she should come out here? Let's see the Draupadi in her naked beauty, like that. So Dushashan, who is Duryodhana's oldest brother, was sent to drag her out there, and he dragged her out there. She was already praying to Krishna. She could already sense that something was happening, something has gone wrong, She was already praying, but they dragged her out there. And initially, he was pulling off the sari, and she was praying to Krishna and holding on, trying to hang in there and protect herself. Because she appealed to her husbands, because they had lost. They had already lost themselves as slaves to Duryodhana, and they lost her, like that. But they lost themselves first. Anyway, I won't get into that part of the story. But so they didn't help. And then she appealed to Bhishma Dev, and anyway, everybody was silent. Nobody was coming to her rescue, So they started Dushashan started to try to disrobe her, and she was, trying to prevent that from happening, and she was praying. And then at some point, she very quickly, well, that didn't take long, but she realized this is pointless. So how am I going to, I'm just a woman, and these are Maharatis. I'm not going to be able. So she just abandoned the effort to defend herself, protect herself. She threw both hands up in the air, there you go, Vinda, and her prayer was, okay, Krishna, protect me or humiliate me. I'm fully depending upon your mercy. And when she did that, that's when the miracle happened. And she just completely took shelter of Krishna, and the miracle happened. Krishna just supplied the unlimited sari. And, they just kind of kept pulling, and then there's just piles and piles of sari. At some point, I don't know, didn't say how long, but everybody realized it's not happening, So they just abandoned the whole thing. And then they apologized. Then what's his name? Dhritarashtra apologized to her and said, we realize we've offended you horribly and insulted you, etc. So please tell us what you want. So the first thing she asked for, he offered a benedictions, and she asked for the benediction of having her husbands back. So that was granted. So then they were no longer slaves. And then I can't remember what else she asked for. But the point being that, when she was trying to, like with the rope thing, her first thing was like trying to, okay, I got the rope, let me see if I can climb out. No, when she was trying to protect herself, Krishna wasn't doing anything, but when she just completely gave up that attempt to defend herself and just completely depended upon Krishna, then Krishna made it happen. Krishna, created a miracle to save her. And actually, to be honest with you, even Prabhupada's situation is something like that. Hang on a second. I'm going to grab something so I can give you an example of that, but I want to get the book so I can read it, so I can, present it really nicely. I'll be right back.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam, please accept my humble obeisance. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So I have a question, like it was great speech and great lessons which have given us message, which have given us today.
Hare
But
Krishna, Prabhu, he was grabbing a paper right now. Could you?
Oh, yeah, let me just finish this and then I will, what's the name of that devotee who's just asking that question?
Shashi Prabhu?
Oh, okay, sounded like somebody I knew, one of the book distributors that I know who travels around, and he happens to be down in that area, so I was wondering if he tuned in, but anyway. Okay, so this is an excerpt from a letter Prabhupada wrote to a devotee back in, I think it was like 1972. And it's the same idea. He says, Prabhupada says, when I was alone in your New York, I was thinking, who will listen to me in this horrible, sinful place? All right, I shall stay a little longer. At least I can distribute a few of my books. That is something. So that's how Prabhupada was thinking. He said, I was thinking, and that's how he was thinking. Now here comes it. Prabhupada says, but Krishna was all along preparing something I could not see. He brought you to me, one by one, sincere American boys and girls, to be trained up for doing the work of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now I can see that it is a miracle. Otherwise, your city of New York, one single old man with only a few books to sell for barely getting edibles, how can he survive? What to speak of introducing a God-conscious movement? What to speak of introducing a God-conscious movement for saving humankind? That is Krishna's miracle. You see? So Prabhupada was just helplessly dependent upon the mercy of his spiritual master, Lord Chaitanya and Krishna. Everybody knows the story. He actually left with no money. He had 45 rupees, and he couldn't change that. He didn't even attempt to change it, because when he got there, years later, Hari Sari, his servant, was going through his clothing. It was like a vest, a jacket. What do they call it? I don't remember how they refer to, but anyway. And he looked in the pocket, and he pulled out those same 45 rupees. So Prabhupada basically went with no money. He traveled there with no money. He had 2 suitcases for the books, Bhagavatam's in them, and a bag of cereal. And then when he got in, so he basically was just completely depending upon the mercy. And this, he wrote this in 1972, and he's basically was referring to is about how when he started, for the first year, nothing was happening. He was doing these classes up in uptown Manhattan, and some old people were coming, and maybe a couple hippies like that. So initially, nothing was really taking root. He contacted some people in India, some God brothers, and asked for help. Send me this, send me that. No, nothing. He contacted some wealthy people who might like to, because he located some buildings that might be suitable for temples. So he contacted them and said, hey, I think there's good prospect here for spreading Krishna consciousness. Please, maybe you could, I know you have a lot of money, you could maybe help us, by making a donation. No. So he used to go back to the office of the Scindia ships, and he'd say, when's the next boat going back? And then he kept going, and then finally the man said to him, Swamiji, I don't think you're going back. And as he was just, on one level, he was discouraged. He was feeling discouraged. He said, when I was alone in New York, I was thinking like that. Who will listen to these horrible? It was kind of discouraged. But he just depended on Krishna. He just really depended on Krishna, and Krishna reciprocated. And that's how it works, That's how Krishna consciousness spreads. It's all Krishna reciprocating with the the desires of the pure devotee. Actually, I'll read you just a couple sentences from a purport in the fourth canto here, where Prabhupada says that. Okay, here we go. This is from fourth canto, chapter 29, text 46, purport. Prabhupada says, a pure devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is always thinking of how fallen, conditioned souls can be delivered. Well, that was certainly Prabhupada, right? That's certainly, Prabhupada describing himself. Not intentionally, but he is. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, influenced by the merciful devotee's attempt to deliver fallen souls, enlightens the people in general from within by his causeless mercy. So that's how it works. And that's actually what you just heard there. That's the explanation of how this Krishna conscious movement happened. It was just actually Krishna reciprocating with Prabhupada's desire to deliver the fallen conditioned souls. Krishna was influenced by the merciful devotees, Prabhupada in that case, attempt to deliver the fallen souls. And what he did was he enlightened the people in general, somebody like me and others like us. I wasn't spiritual kind of a person, but he just kind of enlightened some young American boys and girls, as he said, to come forward and participate, because Prabhupada wanted a movement. And Krishna was, okay, my pure devotee wants a movement. I guess I gotta cooperate, Even though these people aren't qualified, they're really not qualified. Actually, according to the Bhagavad Gita, in chapter 7, text 28, there's a verse that goes, Yesham tvantigatam papam gnanam punyakarmanam tedvandva mohani mukta bhajanti mam drudavrataha. That only unto those persons who have acted piously in this life and in previous lives, and whose sinful activities are completely eradicated, can engage in devotional service. Free from the dualities of desire and delusion, desire and hate, something like that, can engage in devotional service with determination. See, so in other words, that's the standard qualification. Somebody, before they can come to devotional service, they have to have their sinful activities completely eradicated from this life and in previous lives. They have to, there's some qualification generally, but we had nothing. We had no qualification. Once actually on a morning walk, some devotee brought that point up to Prabhupada. He started quoting that verse, and he was kind of starting to ask the question, Prabhupada, it says in the Bhagavad Gita that persons who engage in devotional service, they don't engage in devotional service until their sinful activities are completely eradicated in this life and in previous lives. Does that mean? And Prabhupada cut him off and said, I have created your pious activities. In other words, Prabhupada said, I've created your good fortune. In other words, he was trying to establish that, do we have some qualification? Is that why we are able to take to devotional service? And Prabhupada interrupted him and made the point, no, that's not. No, the fact of the matter is you had no qualification. I've created your good fortune. So it's just the mercy of the pure devotee. That's really basically, how the Krishna conscious movement is here and how we're looking. Prabhupada's mercy. That's why when we say Prabhupada's mercy, we mean it, it's literal. Just Prabhupada's mercy. So somebody had a question? I got about 10 minutes left, 10, 15 at most. That's it.
Shashi, did you have a question? You can
Yeah, Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Please accept my humble obeisance.
Right.
Yeah, actually, the speeches which you have given now is really very interesting and lovable. And I just have a question. Like, I started reading self-realization book 2 days back. It's a really good book. I've read one chapter, and I was thinking like every day I have to read one chapter. But suddenly, I don't know, due to some obstacles, I did not read yesterday and I got paused. So I want to maintain consistent and motivated. I don't know how to, I'm trying to make myself to be very consistent and motivated. Can you please help me, what should I do in this kind of situations, Prabhu?
Okay. How to get motivated and stay motivated? Is that basically the essence of the question?
Yes, I want to maintain consistent reading at least every day, one page. It's a really great book, but I don't know, due to some obstacle, I have to stop yesterday reading it. I'm feeling like, oh, why did I stop reading it? Don't know why.
Okay, I'll tell you something I do that helps me, and you might have observed it even during the class. When you read, don't just read mechanically. What I mean by that is this: like when you're reading, when you come across something that really kind of you resonate with, that hits you, that when you read it, you go, whoa, that's really significant. Make a note of it, mark where it is. What I do, and I actually, I kind of zero in. I focus on the exact things something that Prabhupada said that I felt was really important and meaningful. Then I'll find it on the database. Then I print it out. I print out just that little part. And then after I print it out, I put it in a plastic page holder, you see? And then I have it so that I could actually meditate on it. That helps, Or like, for instance, on my phone, I have this thing called Pocket Vedas. It's all Prabhupada's books on a little sort of some sort of a program. And then it enables you to have bookmarks. So same thing, whenever you come across something that you either hear Prabhupada say by listening to his lectures, that's another thing you could do. Sometimes if you can't read, you might feel too distracted or restless to be able to just sit down and read. Listen, sometimes you could listen when you can't read. I've done that on and off for years. And there's a certain additional charm to listening to Prabhupada's lectures. A nice program is, and you could do this very easily now, there's a lot of facility to do it, is you go on this website, prabhupadvani.org. You can listen to Prabhupada's lectures in chronological order, starting right from I think it's February 1966, where he basically reads the entire introduction to the Bhagavad Gita, right till 77. It'll take you a while, but it's worth it. And those early lectures, 1966 and 7, everything's there. I mean, it's not like that's just beginner stuff. I mean, it's really nectar. Like, I would highly recommend that. That's all. I would highly recommend that as a way to really enhance your feelings of devotion for Prabhupada, Krishna consciousness in general, and Prabhupada in particular. It's real nectar. If you haven't already heard those lectures, you definitely should listen to it. Go right on that website, prabhupadvani.org, and you just play around with it. You'll see how you can get it, and just listen to them one in chronological order. You could just listen to them one after the other, and you could simultaneously read the Leela Amrita, the Prabhupada Leela Amrita, so you can get some kind of, it'll enhance your meditation. You're hearing Prabhupada say the philosophy, and then when you read the Leela Amrita, you'll be learning about the circumstances surrounding the particular lectures that he was giving. Or when Prabhupada did that, he was at this place, and this is what was going on. And it kind of really helps you kind of meditate on Prabhupada, on his life and teachings like that. So that's a nice thing to do. Yeah, that would be my suggestion. Just kind of like don't. It's good to have a quota. It's good to have a quota that I should read this many pages a day, but try to do that. But if you can't,
I think we lost voice, Prabhuji.
Prabhu, I think you
You're
might
muted.
be muted somehow. It cut off.
Yeah, I think you're muted, Prabhuji.
Yeah, you're muted. Yes.
okay, I don't know how that happened. So when you have your things that were previously inspired you, and you have them all organized and printed out and ready to refer to, those same things will. This has been my experience. Those same things will inspire you again. Those same lines that I'm experiencing. It's the same lines that inspired me, like 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 40 feet. I read them again, and the same lines. They inspire me again. So it's just like, as I said, it's like your ammunition. It's good to have that, because those same things that helped you once before, they'll help you again. And then it's just, it's like when your battery goes dead and you need a little bit of a jump start from somebody. Those things will give you the jump start, and then the engine turns over and you're off and running again. That help at all?
Thanks, Prabhuji. It was really great with information which you have given me. I will follow it. And the online website you have told is prabhupadvani.org, right?
prabhupadvani.org. There's also, you could also go to Vanipedia, but I find that a little bit more complicated to work with. But that prabhupadvani.org is pretty simple to work with.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Anybody else have anything? Comments is okay too, or questions or anything? Okay. So, good.
Oh, it looked like Dhananjaya was going to say something.
Oh, Dhananjaya, my old friend. Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, thank you very much for a very wonderful class. It was really enlightening. It was really nourishing to several devotees. So thank you very much.
My pleasure.
And I hope you come again and again, and we can have your association multiple times and more. Hare Krishna. And I really enjoyed all your wonderful narrations and examples. They were exemplary. And it's a really wonderful. And regarding the Shishidhar Prabhu's thing, I just wanted to, what you explained was ecstatic, really wonderful, putting down the notes and everything. And what really helped me also to have a specific time for the reading, and you don't do your sleeping or you don't eat certain things until you finish that really helps me in personally, otherwise it just keeps skipping to the next day and other stuff. So you have to put some kind of boundaries. I'm not going to eat, I'm not going to sleep until I finish this particular thing. So that really helps me individually. Unless you put strain on ourselves, it's not always that we, at least for me, like I'm so not the devotee at all. So it really helps me to put strain on me, and then it works out.
Yeah, I like that. That's good. Your Prabhupada said on one occasion, he said, you have to chalk out your line of duty and follow it. And just some practical advice or suggestion on how to do that is, well, I don't know who I got this from, but there are 3 zones in terms of doing something. Like there's the comfort zone, there's the stretch zone, and there's the strain zone. So when you make a program for yourself, you got to be in the stretch zone. Because you don't want to be in the comfort zone. If you allow yourself to kind of stay in the comfort zone, well, you don't make any progress in the comfort zone. You're just comfortable, right? But you don't make progress. In the strain zone, you make progress, but what happens is because you're straining, you can hurt yourself or you can fry yourself out, burn yourself out. I did that. So I know from experience about that. I used to memorize verses, and I just would push myself so much that I was memorizing verses, but at some point what happened was that because I was pushing myself so much, at some point, my mind just rebelled. And I just said, forget this, I ain't doing this anymore. And I just stopped. I was like, that story about the tortoise and the hare.
Yes.
Yeah, it was like that. It's kind of like I was like the hare. I just kept pushing. Slowly but surely wins the race. So that's when you make your program, just be in the stretch zone. Stretch zone means that you're making an effort, but it's doable. It's something you can maintain.
Yes, maintain.
It's something like I could do this every day. It's reasonable. It's not like I'm not, pushing myself too much.
Yes.
And then you just do like that. Just like, for instance, I'll give you using myself as an example again. So maybe now I know 200 verses by memory. Okay, which is something that's better than nothing, but it's really not a lot, because if you stop and think about it, if I would have learned 1 verse a week, which is not that much. Anybody can really memorize one shloka a week if they want to. Okay, so I've been in the movement, say, almost 50 years. So that's 50 weeks, ballpark figures. 50 weeks times 50 years, that's 2,500. You see what I'm saying? Slowly but surely wins the race. If somebody just get yourself something where you're making an effort and keep and sustain it. And that's the way to really make real progress like that. If you do it in the mode of the comfort zone is kind of like in the mode of ignorance, and the strain zone is in the mode of passion. So we got to do it in the mode of goodness, just an effort, but maintainable.
Maintaining, yeah, very
Yeah.
good. Thank you very much.
So just in responding to something else you said, to be perfectly honest with you, I don't see myself, doing a lot of traveling to different parts of the country and stuff like that, but I'm happy to do this kind of thing. So, whenever anybody you feel
Yes.
inspired, I'm happy to do. And this, I had an uncle, his name was Uncle Bert, okay, my father's brother. And I remember once he was in a car accident or something, so he was in one of these rehabs. And I rang him up and said, "Hey, Uncle Bert, should I come visit you?" And he said, no. He said, "A phone visit is as good as a physical visit." So I always remember that. So in other words, this is not exactly, being physically in person present with everybody, but it's I'd say it's about 80-85%. We're seeing each other, we're hearing each other, we're seeing each other. So it's almost as good. I mean, the only bad part is I'm not going to get to eat the prasadam you guys serve out at the feast. That's aside from that.
Wow.
So anyway, so I'm happy to do this kind of thing.
Thank you.
Whatever you like, just let me know.
Thank you.
All right, so we chant a little Hare Krishna and then end the class. You want to do that? Or?
Yes, I think Alberto Prabhu means if you'd like to sing, that would be wonderful.
That's wonderful.
But if, yeah.
Go ahead, Alberto, take it away.
Are you there, Prabhu? Alberto?
He's muted. I don't know if he's there.
He said yes. He
Okay.
understands.
He put it in the chat, Prabhuji. Yes.
Devotees here love to chant. And we can go hours together chanting and hearing.
That's a healthy sign.
And eating.
Sorry, I was having trouble getting my microphone working. Okay, just give me a second. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Okay, thank you. Hare Krishna. I have to apologize. I have to kind of go now. My time is up. I have to kind of do something. But thank you very much. I really enjoyed being here with everybody, and thank you. It was great for me. I hope everybody else got something out of it too.
Yes.
But as I said, if I don't know, in the future, if you're more than welcome. Sure. If the opportunity presents itself, I'm happy to do this.
Yes, Prabhu,
Just
would
let me
love
know.
to have you at least as much as possible.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so very much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Wonderful
Hare
class.
Krishna. Jai Jai.